What I'm looking forward to in season two of the Zip Code plays, just really basic. I'm just first of all looking to just hear a good story. I'm looking to go for a good ride, and I know the writers who are involved will give us that. But also how they're able to within that ride incorporate the history of whatever zip code they're focused on, whatever zip code that they brought to the table. Because there's stories that I know I don't have any clue about that I would be totally surprised to learn of. So that's what I'm looking forward to on this go around, just like last time. I think any listener should come and hear the zip code plays. One, you're going to be entertained. I mean, that's the first thing. People want to be entertained. They want to go for a ride, just like I spoke of before. I want to go for a ride. I want to hear a good story, and I want to hear good performances. And that's why they should come, first of all, because they will be entertained. But secondly, because you're going to find out history that you didn't have any idea about. You're going to find out about these little places and some of these people in LA, in the LA County area that you didn't know about before. And again, the history and how it relates to today will be there for people to pick up on. And so I think not only will it make you entertained, but it'll also leave you with the ability to gain knowledge that you didn't have before. And in gaining that knowledge, actually making yourself better in a certain type of way. Because when you have knowledge, then you can seek out more things that you didn't know existed before. And that knowledge will make you even a better person than you were before you came into it. Hey, I'm Khari Wyatt, author of Golden Shine. And if you want to learn more about my podcast audio play, watch this video. The idea for Golden Shine came about. I just was looking for an idea because they were accepting pitches for Zip Code Plays 2, and I was thinking I wasn't even going to submit. And then I thought, well, let me just walk around, live my life, see if anything came to mind. Eventually, I just happened to be online, and I found something about the gold rush. And I was like, the gold rush. That could be interesting. So I started delving deeper into the gold rush, and I discovered that the actual first gold in California wasn't found up north. It was found in Antelope Valley, down here in Southern California. And so then I was like, wow, that's an interesting history that most people don't realize. And in researching that topic about the gold rush, I discovered that slave owners from the South came out here also to strike their fortune. And they would bring some of their slaves with them. And sometimes those slaves would run away and gain their freedom. So I was like, you know what? All of that could be very interesting history to incorporate into this audio play, along with the fact that Pacoima itself was really one of the only places in the valley where black people could live up until like the early 60s. Because of housing covenants and general discrimination, black people weren't living in various parts of the city. It was either South Central, or Pacoima was also another point in the LA County where a lot of black residents lived. And then once housing covenants were broken and different discriminatory practices were stopped, then black people started to move into other parts of the valley and other parts of Los Angeles in general. So I said, all that is an interesting history. And even as far back as in the 1800s, Pacoima, before it was even called Pacoima, was a place that was very diverse, whereas other parts of LA weren't. But Pacoima was always that. So I said, I need to set this here, because I didn't know that about Pacoima. I've driven past Pacoima, I've driven through it. I didn't know there was this history of diversity. Okay, the main character is a college professor named Dr. Lachey Fair. And she is a professor at a fictional local university who's disaffected by her job and by something that's happened at her job. And she is thinking of leaving the profession. And she runs into a man named Samson who is in her neighborhood, walking through the neighborhood, who has a mule. And they have some interaction, and that interaction leads to some things. I won't get too far into it because I want it to be surprising. And she also has a friend who's a part of the story named Nona, who's also a college professor. The team is Sandra McLean. She directed it. I was introduced to her through our associate, through our artistic director, actually, Bill Brockstrup. and Kitty Swink, and they put me in contact with Sandra, and she did a wonderful job. She was excellent to work with. She was very insightful and gave me some good feedback that helped me make the story better, helped me make the story just a little bit more poignant than it was on the first draft I had written. Karen Molina White plays Lachey. Tamika Katon-Donegal plays her friend Nona, and Dale Turner plays Samson. And these are all Antaeus associated actors. They're in the company at Antaeus. And so I didn't have to go far to find talent. What I would like for the audience to get out of the play, what I would love for the audience to get out of the play is really not just the sense of the history of the gold rush or of what Pacoima was in terms of a bastion for black people in a certain time period in terms of being able to live there. I would also like people to understand how the university system itself is not just a place of education. You know, universities are big business. They're nonprofits officially, but they're really big business. They have investments like they have investments like a corporation would have investments. You know, they are trying to make money in their way, and people can be victimized by that. I'd also like people to get out of it that we are connected to our history. History is not just something that happened back then. History is always present. The things that happen in history don't just disappear. You know, the tendrils of it float throughout time and space. The things that happened in 1860s are still happening today. You had that riot, that insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th. You had many of those people who would say Blue Lives Matter, but they killed a police officer. They assaulted police officers in that same insurrection. You know, the response to those people was much different than the protesters for Black Lives Matter who had been in the city just in June. The presence of the police, the tactics of the police force were totally diametrically opposed. So, and the FBI has informed Congress on a couple of occasions now that domestic terrorism, specifically white supremacists, are the biggest threat to our national security. This has been true for over 100 years. So when you talk about the history of the Ku Klux Klan, you talk about the history of Nazis, of white nationalists, we're still talking about the same things today. So because something happened back in the history, you know, doesn't mean it's over. It just happened back then, but you can still see a hand from back then into in your present day. So I really want people, if nothing else, get that. And the things that people have gone through to get you to where you are today. I want people to really appreciate that there are people who came before you that helped you to get where you are. And that you don't live your life for that. You have to live your own life for the way you want to live it. But there is some honor that needs to be paid for those that paved the way for you to get where you are. I mean, really, the art is the spiritual backbone of any community. It's the spiritual backbone of your nation. The things that are happening, it's a time capsule, right? The things that I could go look at a play from Eugene O'Neill's time and find out what was going on in part of this country at that time period. You know, so on throughout the ages, that's what art serves to do. It shows us ourselves. It helps us connect to ourselves. It helps us connect to other people. It helps us to have experiences that we might not have had ourselves personally. It creates empathy at its best. You know, even if it's not an experience that you've had, somebody has had it and you see it played out in a dramatic form. And usually I would say when people see art connects with people in a way that a politician can't connect with a person. It connects in a way that an activist can't connect with a person. It really seeps into your soul, whether you want it to or not, because that's what art is. It reaches inside you when you see it, or when you hear it, or when you look at it. So Antaeus, like I've said, puts forth such quality work So there's a lot for you to be moved by. There's a lot for you to learn from. And Antaeus does it at a high level with many different kinds of people. And if you were going to support a theater, Antaeus would be one to support because it's really coming from that place of art being pure, art making a difference in a person's life. Hey, I'm Khari Wyatt, playwright, Golden Shine, a part of Zip Code Plays too. And if you've enjoyed this conversation, please go to Antaeus's website and support the theater in any way you can, whether that's volunteering or whether that's a cash donation. All help is appreciated.